Hey, it's Marcella here. Welcome to the February All Community Call for the Women Food and Forgiveness Academy. I've got Sheila here with me.
Everybody.
Hey, happy February. Let's begin the way I like to begin. So, if you're in a place where it's safe and comfortable to do so, let's just do a very, very short, just gathering ourselves into ourselves and just taking a few deep breaths here. And I want to invite you while you've got your hands on your heart to just connect in a little more deeply to your heart center. See if you can feel or hear the beating of your heart. And see if you can find any place in your heart where there might just be a very, 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 it could be teeny, teeny, tiny, little flicker of joy. Like if you just really settle into your heart and think about, reflect on something that makes you feel joyful. It could be a person in your life. It could be your beautifully decluttered house. It could be just a sense of the growing light, the daylight that is increasing in the Northern Hemisphere. It could be some sense of new possibility in your life, something fresh that is beginning to germinate. Maybe it hasn't fully sprouted yet, but you just know that it's on its way. Yeah, just give yourself a moment to really appreciate whatever it is that you're connecting to. Nice. And just let that joy emanate out from your heart center to the edges of your body. Just give yourself a little bit of permission to feel good in this moment. And then when you're ready, you can begin taking your hands away from your heart center and just feel that sense of warmth between your hands and your heart as you come on back into the circle. So happy February, everybody. This is the all community call for our talk next week. I've got Sheila here with me, and we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I want to frame our conversation today inside of the time of year that this is, inside of the particular day that this is. Yeah, and we're going to just do like, we don't have anything really too prepared. We're going to do kind of like a little barefoot meandering through a bunch of different topics in the next few minutes, and we'll just see what comes out. So today is Groundhog Day. Today in the Celtic calendar is also the feast of Imbolc, and it's the Imbolc is the cross quarter day between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So we're 6 weeks. We're exactly 6 weeks out of the solstice, and 6 weeks before before the equinox. So we're in an intermediate time in the cycle of the year. We're still in winter, but we're coming in. We're in the tail end of winter, and we can feel spring is coming closer, and that's what this time of year is about. And also, for those of you who are part of, Shambhala, the spiritual community that I'm part of, uh, in the Tibetan lunar calendar, this time of year is the tail end of the lunar year. So it's a time to really release that which no longer serves you in anticipation for what is to come. And I just read something the other day that February, the name February, um, is connected to Febrere in Latin, which is the word fever. So when I think of the fever of February, I mean, I look out my window, there's still snow on the ground, but when I think of the fever of February, I think about something that's kind of not fully manifested yet, but it's like on its way. There's a sense of growing energy. The days are getting longer and so on. So I just want to place our conversation in the context of, just everything that's happening in nature at this time. So, given that this is the final month of the crone, and we are anticipating the arrival of the maiden next month, I thought it would be a nice time to talk about aging and agelessness. So, I think with that, I want to just turn it over right to Mary Sheila. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how age and agelessness works in our physiology. And then Mary Sheila, I'm going to let you take the floor, and then I'm just going to kind of add in my little bits and pieces along the way, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. You know, that is something that we can never escape, really, is our body is always aging. And it's also always regenerating. And that process between aging and regeneration is what sort of slows down as we age, right? And however, how we care for ourselves, whether it's our self-care and our self-love and our nutrition and our sleep and our thoughts, they all really contribute to the aging process. And we do know in throughout the aging process, there are, words that we can connect to aging, which is like oxidation or free radicals, or the ability for the body to detoxify and to keep, one of the main things in Ayurveda that I think is so important, that's really stuck with me, is to make sure that all of our pathways of elimination are open. Because when our pathways are open, things flow and they don't back up and get stuck, right? It's kind of like the end of fall when you look at a river and it's all sitting there waiting for the rain, and there's maybe moss and just all kinds of gunk. You want to jump in it. And then in the wintertime, it's really flowing, right? And it's cleansed itself. And that's really, we want to make sure all of our pathways are moving and flowing. And there's a reality of, being able to make sure that our body is able to move. One of the things I was telling Marcella that I'd heard years ago was, one of the most important things when it comes to aging and being able to continue to care for yourself is, do you have enough core strength to be able to sit down on your toilet, to go to the bathroom and then get back up on your own? And oftentimes when they lose that core strength, which, sometimes that can happen no matter what, at a certain age, then that's when, that person might not be able to live alone anymore. But it really does become a part of how do we age with grace? How do we age, exactly what you said, with agelessness? And I think it's a mindset that we almost want to adopt as much as it is our really our day-to-day actions, right? If we have whatever goal we have in with our aging process and just our health in general, like if my goal is, if I vision a path and I have a goal that's on that path, it's not, this is my day to day, this is my living, this is my everyday choices. It's not about perfection, but it's about knowing that, wow, my cells need lots of water to stay healthy and plump and vital, and my cells need lots of antioxidants or vitamins and minerals that help my body to process the free radicals and the oxidants that are part of our breaking down process, normal process. So it all is connected to that end goal, because that end goal is, we're all, none of us are going to get out of this world alive. So the end goal of aging gracefully is just having as much quality of life as we can throughout each stage in our life.
I want to speak, can I speak to the emotional piece of this, Mary Sheila? I really love what you said about opening the pathways of elimination. So let me just make sure I've got all the body pathways of elimination. So we have the obvious ones of like urination, defecation. We have sweat. We have tears. We have rash, like we can get rashes. We can, like our skin. My understanding is like our skin is the last organ. Like if everything else fails, it just pushes out through the skin, whatever it is that needs to be moved on. But there's also another pathway of elimination, which is the emotional pathway or the psychic pathway or the spiritual pathway. So you mentioned something about mindset here. So, what, like the mindset of agelessness, clean as you go. Okay, so maybe, let's see, I want to talk about clean as you go from an emotional point of view. So, to me, when I think emotionally about clean as you go, if I'm upset about something, if I'm angry, if I'm resentful, if I'm scared, if I'm really literally off center in any way, in a way that doesn't feel good, that I have tools to come back to myself and check in with myself and move through whatever toxins are coming up so that I can get back to my emotional homeostasis. So I'm imagining that if I have that as a practice, if I emotionally, physically, psychically clean as I go, then it gets easier for the pathways of physiology. I don't know if you want to just say something about that and what you think.
Well, kind of what it makes me think of is like the practices that we have. And so, there are times where we want to do a detox, and it or eat a certain way for a certain period of time, because we think of it as sort of a cleansing and supporting those pathways of detox. Just like we would say, I go on a afternoon walk in nature as part of my clean as I go and process through stuff, or a meditation practice or an exercise practice, like thinking of it in those ways too, of like, we're really, anytime we're doing those things intentionally, we're cycling through those pathways and we're supporting those pathways. So how do we support those pathways of, physical, emotional, and psychologically or physiologically or whatever, but how do we support those pathways? And that's where we do find, practices. And I think what's important is when we find those practices, again, like even if it's a specific way to eat for a little while, like AKA like a diet or a cleanse or something, if we really set in there intentionally, I think that's when with that mindset of this is what I'm doing it for this specific amount of time. I think that's when it's just easier than maybe a different mindset that might be like, oh, I'm going to do this to lose 20 pounds. It's like, no, I'm going to do this because I'm honoring and supporting those pathways.
That's beautiful. So I loved what you said too earlier about like, here we are, here's where we want to be. And then life happens in between. And that's the journey. Like, that's how we get there.
Yeah.
So I want to ask everybody who's listening, maybe if you want to do a little bit of journaling for yourself, how are and what are your pathways of elimination, letting go of that which no longer serves you, whether it's physiologically, there's toxins that you need to move through your system, or emotionally, what are the emotional residues, let's say, of this past year that you can flush them out of your system. Like, what are the tools? And we'll talk about this, obviously. We're going to guide you through some of this too this month. Um, yeah, the whole idea of like care of the soul is what comes to me when I think about aging and agelessness. Like for myself, I want to speak about my own experience for a moment if I can. So next month in about 6 weeks, I'm going to turn 59. And, I'm looking at 60 coming down the pike. And, I'm saying, bring it on. Like, I feel for myself more vital, better in my body than I did when I was 40. In some ways than I did when I was 30. And I was doing yoga this morning thinking about this call, and my yoga mat has become like a sacred temple. That when I get on that mat, the rest of the world disappears, and my body gets to call the shots in terms of what I do. Um, and I was thinking about that and how having a movement practice of some kind, something that works for you. You don't have to become like a yoga chick, or you don't have to become like a lycra gym chick, but to have some way that your body gets to move outside of its habitual pattern and express some joy or express some vitality. That could be all kinds of things for you, but I think that is one of the key pieces of agelessness. And the other, as I was saying earlier, is having time where you simply are devoting yourself to self-care. So what did I say? I put down something in my notes here, and I have to find it. Hold on a second. Just I can't see. Just like a cleaning as you go, self-care day or half a day, like where you take time in your calendar and you block it out. It could be time every day, time once a week, time once a month, but some time that you block out and you say, I am dedicating this time to myself. What I need emotionally, what do I need nutritionally, what do I need, etc. So yeah, the cleaning as you go, I think, is an important piece of kindling and keeping alive what I experience within myself as like a beautiful, joyful, dancing maiden in the center of my heart. So that even as my body succumbs to the inevitable ravages of time, there's something internal that is fresh, clean, youthful, vibrant. That there's some kind, in Chinese medicine, it's called Shen, the energy of the heart that emanates out. So there's some sense of like my soul being current and up to date, even as my body is going through the signs of aging.
Yeah. And so here's a question I want to ask everybody is and I'll ask you too, Marcella, like if you were to think about like what age do you feel like your soul is at compared to your body, right?
What
So
age is my soul?
yeah, like what age, I mean, do you identify as? And I think, whatever that is, maybe it's a number in your 20s or 30s or 40s or whatever, like you'll settle on a number.
15.
Okay.
I can really connect. I can connect to being 15 years old in my soul.
Okay. So like I think hold that
Right.
number. Hold that because like we have that number. And it reminds me one time I was listening to actually Alan Alda, who's on MASH, right? And he was saying, I feel like I'm still blah, blah, blah age. And it was like, maybe a 30-year-old. And he's like, and then I look in the mirror and I'm like, whoa, who's that old guy? But I think because we have kind of like a soul age and like be okay, like honor that within yourself because that is really that's like claiming our vitality, right? And the more we can really hold that peace and that positivity and that youthfulness, like we can do anything. It doesn't have to be where things start falling apart at a certain age. I mean, yes, our body changes. And I can't tell you how many times, a few years ago, sitting at a baseball game when my daughter was playing softball, and this woman behind me, like, oh, ever since I hit 40, everything, is falling apart. And I'm just sitting there and I look back And it's like, that's fine. You can have that mindset, but that is not my mindset. Like, I feel stronger because I feel more connected to my why, about why I want my health and my vitality and my agelessness than I do now than I did when I was younger. So that reflects on my choices. And I am by far not perfect with, even though I'm a nutritionist and I work, it's not like I'm this perfect, never eating anything or whatever wrong. But that path, that journey from here to here is me taking care of the best care of myself that I can on a day-to-day basis, doing as much as I can in a busy day. Again, it's not about perfection. It's just about the effort that I put into it, loving myself. And that's the journey. But also, like, we have to also have fun with it. Like, we have to find playfulness and joy in caring for ourselves, because we can't take ourselves too seriously, and that's where I think it can be fun. And that's the mindset. I don't want to be like this, lady saying after 40. I want to be like, hey, I feel like I'm in my 30s still. I've really liked my 30s. Um, and I also am liking my 40s. And so, maybe I'll find a place within there. I don't know, but like, find that soul age and just own it. Own that part of you
So
that
what's your soul age, Mary Sheila?
also, I was just saying, I have to think about it. It's probably around, I'll just say, like, when I turned 30, that was a hard year for me, or birthday for me. Like, I had a small child. And because I was a mom, I felt like there was a lot of things I thought I would have done that I didn't think I would do for a long time because I was now a parent.
Mhm.
But then once I kind of stepped into my 30s, so I think it's somewhere in there.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe 33, my Jesus year. Anyway.
So talking about one of the things I want to talk about later this month is in the spirit of honoring the crone and anticipating the maiden, is to look at the arc of our blood cycles. So a lot of us here, um, we are women of menopausal age, or we're postmenopausal. And we might have had certain experiences in our menopause where, like, we gained weight that we didn't get it, we can't lose the weight that we gained in menopause, or, our hormones just really started changing. And, in some way or another. And I'm very curious about how, if you have in fact been through the menopausal phase, if there's any connection back into menarche, into the onset of your menses. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we do our group mentorship call. We're going to do some very focused work about it. So I just want to plant that in your consciousness. But coming back to the idea of eliminating, opening up the pathways of elimination, I want to introduce a 7-day decluttering challenge in your home, in your sphere of possessions. And I was inspired by this today, looking at my makeup bag. This is a relatively tiny makeup bag, and I like it to be small, but it's full of makeup that I don't use anymore. So I want to commit to everybody that I'm going to go through my makeup bag, and all the makeup that doesn't serve me anymore is going to find its way downstream. So you might want to go through your makeup bag. You might, and we're suggesting take something really small and very manageable. You might want to go through your underwear drawer. Great thing for Valentine's Day. Give yourself some self-love. Get rid of the underwear that really does not feel joyful on your body, and get yourself some new underwear for the body that you have. Maybe you want to go through your shoes. Like, what shoes really serve me? What don't serve me? And what new do I need to bring in? Maybe you need to rearrange your self-care products in your bathroom. Like, make your bathroom or your kitchen like a real sanctuary of self-care. Like, what's the stuff that needs to move out and what is the new that I need to bring in? And then I also, in anticipation of the Vegetable of the Month Club coming up in March, I want to invite you to think about preparing your kitchen pantry for more home cooking. And in particular, going through your spice rack, looking at your spices, what needs to move on, looking at your kitchen tablecloth, your napkins. Are there shelves that need to be cleaned? Now, mind you, you don't have to do all of this, but maybe just pick one or two things over the next 7 days and commit that you're going to move the old out to make room for the new. Is there anything I'm missing there, Mary Sheila?
No, I think that's great. And I'll just share too, I will be also supporting the decluttering challenge when we have our nutrition call. But I also, what I want to really talk about too is just how do you support those detox pathways and sort of, mopping up and exiting out like the excess free radicals and oxidation. So like literally, how do you support all of those pathways? So I'll be talking about that in my pre-nutrition call. And then, we'll be able to really kind of dive into some of the real practical things that you can do to support your body and continue to age in a really healthy way.
There's one piece of this, we're getting on time to finish here, but there's one piece of this that I want to bring full circle. That we were talking about aging and agelessness and what makes us ageless. And just that we were talking about the clean as you go principle and opening the pathways of elimination as a way, all of that is a way to reduce the fever in the body, like to reduce the inflammation in the body, to begin to cool the body down. And with that detoxification comes the elimination of that which no longer serves us, which can include body weight that we've been holding on to. I mean, am I missing something here? Or just is there anything that I'm missing in that? I just wanted to begin tying all that together so that we were really clear on what, where we're going this month.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even that idea of like, eliminating and reducing the body weight, right? When that happens, in our storage, we often store toxins. So the clean as you go and paying attention to those pathways of detoxification make, it really important if as we lose weight to make sure everything's moving so that as our fat cells begin to break down and any toxins that are stored in them, they're able to move out of the body too, because they're free radicals. They're going to cause a little havoc on the inside, but then we're putting in the good stuff that's going to be like, hey, you're not going to do that much damage and you're out of here. So that's kind of the way it works inside.
Yay. Great. Well, we'll see you on Monday. And thank you all for listening. Lots of love to everybody. Happy Groundhog Day. Let's hope the groundhog, what is it? If we see his shadow, we get 6 more weeks and then springtime comes. Right on. Okay, great. All right, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.